Catch me 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. every Friday on Black Culture Radio. And don't forget that you can listen to any show you want at any time on Mixcloud. If you go to mixcloud.com and put JJ Music Lover 75 into the search bar, you'll find all my shows and mixes. Yes, dopeness there. True Sev there. 2024, an album called College Degrees and Guns. When I spoke to him, that is what we were talking about. He has new stuff out, so go check that out. That's dope too, man. Album called 888 Paradigm Street, I think. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it's dope anyway. Yes, that track was called A Conversation. And I'm about to have a conversation now. I have in the house legendary MC, Journalist 103. How you doing, brother?
Peace, bro. How you feeling? How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good, man. Right. Thank you for doing this. Might as well begin. You've just come off tour with Apollo Brown and Guilty Simpson, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Pretty dope.
how was that, man? How did that go?
It was pretty dope, man. 15-year anniversary tour,
Mhm.
celebration of the Gas Mask album. And then with Guilty and Apollo also doing the Domino, you know what I'm saying, the Domino album, Domino Effect.
Yeah.
You know, that was dope too. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Okay.
Albums,
Yeah.
you know, the place to be.
Yeah.
You know, so that was dope.
Okay. Yeah. Um, just losing connection a little bit, but we're still here. Okay. So it was just Europe, was it? Was there any plans to do further afield?
No, not everything a year and maybe
Okay.
but
Just losing you a little bit. Is your Wi-Fi cutting out? I can't. You're cutting out a little bit.
let's see. Fix it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Basically, the
just
next question.
call.
The next question I wanted to ask was, why did you pick Europe and not the US or somewhere else? Why did you concentrate on Europe?
Received over there. You know,
Okay.
it's a cult classic record.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the people who came out to see us perform, these are people who they were there when we were there the first time in 2012.
Hmm.
You know, not too long after we released the album in 2010. You know,
Yeah.
so it was a momentous occasion, man. They passed this record down to their kids.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So it was real dope.
Okay, that's cool, man. Do you think there's a reason why it was sort of more well received over here than it was in the States? Do you have any feelings on that, or do you think it is just how it goes sometimes?
Well, it's systematic. You know, it's all about the marketing of the music.
Mm.
You know, when you deal with a lot of artists who are more socially conscious, or they stick to their roots in regards to the talent. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? You know, you might get say for example, like a Talib Kweli or Yassine Bey. They
Yeah,
might not get as much attention as a Machine Gun Kelly or Lil Yachty. You
I know
know,
what you mean. Yeah, yeah.
and it has nothing to do with the age range or anything like that. Because I have a lot of youngers who are true you have his name Keith Kosher Note. Is that uh didn't like that. You know what I'm saying? Like the whole rhyme schemes, they're dope. You know what I'm saying? You have a lot of younger artists that are coming up nowadays that are just bananas when it comes to lyricism. So
Mhm.
it's all about marketing, man. You know what I'm saying? So if the labels is pushing it, you know what I'm saying, they're gonna push a certain type of agenda. You know what I'm saying? What's popular. They get for analytics and things like that. So
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
Uh,
so that's pretty much what that is.
okay, that's cool, man. So, so let's go back to when the Gas Mask album was, before the Gas Mask, basically. How did you link up with Apollo Brown, and how did DJ Soko get on board?
Well, when I met Apollo, this was around like 2007, I believe, when I met Apollo.
Hmm.
Um, maybe a little earlier, but we definitely linked around 2007, and we started working on the album then.
Okay.
Soko was around because he was a DJ at the time.
Yeah.
We were going around. You know what I mean? So since he like we as we were working on the album, you know, so that's how that manifested. And then after recording it, and putting it together, it was a masterpiece, man. I remember Apollo wanting to shop it, and he got it in a few hands of a few different labels. A lot of labels turned it down.
Yeah.
And then once he got it over to Mellow Music Group, my man, he loved it. And he was just so enthused. He said, man, he was willing to do whatever to make sure
Mhm.
that the album was successful.
Yeah.
And he did help us realize that dream, man. Shouts out to the people over at Mellow Music Group. They were able to help put us on a platform that we probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So
Yeah, man. Yeah, shout out to them, man. Definitely, because it's classic material as far as I'm concerned. Um, how early in the forming of the album did you think, we've got something supreme here? How far into it did you know that this was, what I mean, like a cultural touchstone?
uh I want to say uh maybe 4 or 5 songs in.
Mm,
Uh, maybe not even that. Uh, we, we just, I mean, uh, one on the beats that he had at the time, my mind frame, where I was, things that I was witnessing.
right.
Also, man,
Okay. What was the reception like when you first started, when you first released it, after Mellow Music showed love and you finally got it out there? What reception were you getting at the time around where you were? I think his line has dropped again.
like some of our heroes. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like Chip Fu. Shout out to Chip Fu.
Mm.
Um, this when we met Knots. He had just finished doing the album Raw Digger at the time. We met Raw Digger. Um, a few other heavy hitters, producers, and MCs. Um, Rapper Big Pooh was there. Justice League. It was dope, man. It was a dope experience. You know what I'm saying? And once the album really started circulating, what I mean, people had, they had knew about it before we had even got on stage. That was the fascinating part.
Mhm.
So real heads that appreciate real music, like some good music, they gonna get a hold of it. You know what I mean? And this is way before streaming was even as popular as it is now.
Mhm.
You know, um, so yeah, like early on, what I'm saying, like here in the States, places like New York, they was real, they gravitated towards it easy,
Mhm.
you know. But then, once it started spreading, it spread it, you know.
Yeah.
And we developed a nice fan base music, which helped us to be able to do other things, and still maintain relevance in hip hop culture.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. And then we go on to reporting live. Did you have those kind of problems that you had with Gas Mask to get that shot, or was that kind of easy? Was Baby Grand on board straight away, or was it?
Well, I got they to me like right now, all the everything that to me before I had even recorded anything for what I'm saying for reporting live. And
Right.
so that album, it wasn't even birthed. It hadn't, I hadn't recorded a song, I hadn't wrote a lyric, nothing, because I was still, dealing with, for off of the Gas Mask record.
Mm.
So once the steam from the Gas Mask, kind of like started, getting thin,
Mm.
that's when I started working on the Reporting Live album. And so I was signed to Baby Grand by then, basically.
Right.
And so that's how, then I started working on Reporting Live. And with reporting on and with working on that album, I had to get out of my head. You know what I'm saying? Because you are your biggest critic,
Yeah.
so so I just had to like just come from the heart, man, like how I did in my previous works. Came from the heart, um, focused on what was going on at the time, and just put together, a dope record, and a lot of people that was well received also. Even when we was on tour, a lot of people say, "Oh man, I thought you was gonna perform this track from Reporting Live and this one."
Mm.
They was coming up with the record, and asked me to, autograph the record. So, you know, it'd be dope, I can do an anniversary tour for that album,
Okay.
because that one was well received also,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then shouts out to Baby Grand too, man, because again, I wouldn't have been able to develop the you that.
Okay. And then after that, there was a 4 year wait before we got, your 2016 album, The Battle of Hearts and Minds. Did you plan for it to be 4 years, or was there other things happening that delayed it?
Um, Actually, I had the album, I had it done by, I want to say 20, I had it done by 2014. They didn't release it until 2016 for whatever the reason, because I think they had, because they had a roster of other artists.
Hmm.
Um, so I didn't need it to be that long, but I ended up releasing it around 2016 with BG, and that's when we ended up um releasing that project there. So we was able to shoot a video for it, which I was pleased with. Shouts out to Diego Cruz for shooting the Evil Eye video.
Mhm.
Um, and then um, you know, like I said, man, that's I honestly believe that's like one of my favorites. Battle of Hearts and Minds. That's like one of my favorite albums that I've done so far.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I mean,
now not being signed to a label at all. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? I kind of like just been dealing with life and what I'm saying, kids and the monotony of everyday living.
mhm,
You know, and just trying to work on music in between.
yeah.
So now, after coming off of this 15-year anniversary tour, the pressure's back on me to, release some new music soon. So I got some new music coming, you know.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I was going to ask you about that because obviously after the Battle of Hearts and Minds, there's the Ugly Tony verse that you did in 2019, and then yeah, the track on the Supremacy album in 2020, and we haven't really seen anything from you since then. So, has this tour? I mean, did this tour light a fire under you to make some new music, or were you gonna always planning to bring something out new anyway?
Well, I had intentions of releasing some new music anyway,
Mm,
but doing this, it was inspirational. You know what I'm saying? I had a chance opportunity that people still, when you got people coming up to you saying, I've been waiting to see you for 15 years, you feel kind of guilty. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Like, man, I ain't mean to have y'all waiting this long,
Mm,
and um, so now it's like, okay, now it's like a now or never. I feel obligated to the people. I have to do something. You get
mm.
what I'm saying? So, you know,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. So, it was definitely inspirational to say the
Mhm.
least.
Okay, man. Um, what when you first sort of started expressing yourself artistically, what form did that take? Was that you sort of, you know, solitary writing poetry by yourself, or were you, banging on lunch tables or ciphers on street corners? How did it come out of you when you first started expressing yourself?
Um, I've always been a kid, I've always been fitted with um it was until I was about maybe 11 when I started writing raps because um with hip hop I was always around it, playing music. Like a lot of the Gangstar records that was coming out,
Hmm.
Run MC, different artists, and so he was, so yeah. Then as I got older, with it, banging on my phone, that part of it. So, of course, we part of that, so um, yeah, so it's what I always admired, even from a young age.
Okay. All right. And going right back to the beginning, what kind of music did you grow up with? What were your parents playing, or, siblings or cousins or anything like that? What kind of music did you grow up around?
Michael Jackson's always with Self Destruction, Boogie Down Productions.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that was like the first rap tape that I bought, and
Okay.
then it just kind of opened up from there.
Mhm.
Um, so anything that came out around that time. So it went from that Ghetto Boys, Outkast, the Southern Playalistic album, um, everything Wu Tang, Tribe Called Quest. Midnight Marauders album.
Hmm.
Uh, Man, the list is endless, man. Like around that time, you talking
Yeah.
like 93, 94, 95.
Hmm.
That's when the music was definitely at a whole nother level, you know.
Okay. And what was the driving force from listening to these guys to thinking that you could do it yourself?
I just wanted to do it, man. I mean, listening to him was definitely, it was inspirational, you
Yeah.
know. Getting, over the curve and things like that. But it was just something that I loved, man. You know what I'm saying? Growing up, so I was just like, man, I don't want to do nothing else. And at the time I didn't, what I mean? And even now, as a well adult male, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Uh I still wrestle with it, like there's nothing else that really like yeah, it's just the party's party.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So back in those early days, when you first getting started, and you sort of started with the mountain climbers and stuff like that. Were you a driving force behind that, or was it like a group decision? I mean, were you kind of like pulling people along in the mountain climbers, or were they pulling you along, or was it all of you kind of like in it together, like driving forward?
Well, during my mountain climbing days, that was my man Strike's brainchild, right? Shout out to my man Strike. He was the main driving force because he was a little older and he knew everybody in the city.
Mhm.
Everybody has like their Mount Rushmore of people that kind of like put them on. I got my older cousin who kind of like just introduced me to hip hop in general.
Mhm.
Strike introduced me to the culture of hip hop here in Detroit, and just was showing me like, hey man, it's a whole it's land out here for the taking. You know what I mean? Like you need to come out here and get some of it.
Mhm.
And then Proof, who basically after he got on and became successful, just started telling us about the business and making us feel valued as artists. You know what I
Right.
mean? So you know, that's pretty much how that started, and then, me and Strike were like, like the two main figures of the group, what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Because we were always the ones that were, together and, what I'm saying, regardless to who was around and who came and who left, it was always just me and him, in the grand scheme of things, as far as mountain climbers here in Detroit was concerned,
Mhm.
but like I said, he came to me with the idea, that in the early days.
Okay. All right then. I want to expand out a little, get into the hip hop game in general. Like you just said, you're from Detroit, you grew up in that scene, um, and it seems to me that guys out of Detroit, when you think of the bigger rappers out of Detroit, your Eminems and your Royce the 5 9s and Elzais and people like that. It seemed like Detroit seems to be a hotbed of introspective rappers, rappers that talk more about life and what's going on with them personally. Um,
Mhm,
am I wrong in that? I mean, you grew up on the scene. This is me sort of guessing from the UK, but it seems like
mhm,
Detroit seems to breed the more introspective rappers than sort of what I mean, the coke rappers or anything like that. Do you find that
mhm.
was there a reason why you kind of went that direction instead of the sort of crime stuff?
Well, I mean, personally, um, I'm from the street. I'm just, the street was never a part of me in that
Yeah.
sense. If that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like, I never adopted like, okay, this is my way out. You know what I'm saying? But then, a lot of my other friends, looked at it as that is the only way out. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it's kind of like you like caught up in like a parallel, like a parallel universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like So um, because on the other hand, you got cats that are here that are from the street. That's all they rap about.
Hmm.
And you got cats here like literally can live in the same neighborhood, don't like that at all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But again, using the same, you know what I'm saying? We're using different pathways. It's almost like both the superhero and the villain have had something traumatic happen to them, right? But they both made a choice on what they're going to do. One chose to protect and to keep people from experiencing this. Another was to make people see what happened to him. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's all about perspective. You know what I'm saying? So that's the difference.
I get what
You can come up in the same environment, in the same, and witness the same things, the same crime rates and things like that.
you.
But you make the choice on what you're going to allow to affect you and what you're going to put out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right, I get you. Yeah, no, I understand that, man. Also, the way it is now with streaming and social media and all that, when it comes to music and people releasing stuff quick, quick, quick. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think it's a good thing that it's like that, or do you sort of hanker for the days when you could do an album and sit on it for 3 or 4 years? I mean, how do you feel about it? Do you ever feel like getting prolific like some of these other guys are, or are you happy just to lay back in the cut and, sort of?
Well, honestly, there's no specialness to it. Everybody think now that they can be a rapper because they can buy a lap and a microphone.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, we had to actually go out. Like first we had to prove that we could rap. That was first and foremost.
Yeah.
And we had to prove it amongst whomever we were around. You know what I mean? We had to prove it locally first. Then we had to prove it internationally if we was to go that far and different things like that.
Hmm.
Earning our stripes.
Yeah.
You know, that took development, man. That took practice, that took writing, that took exercise, mentally, I'm saying, and developing your skill set, and then we started releasing music, what I'm saying, it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that came into the albums, that came into the studio sessions, you
Yeah.
know, buying 10-hour blocks and things like that, and, spending money, to get, some music done, with money that you really didn't have, but you looked at like, okay, this is all or nothing. You
Right.
know, now, it costs nothing to release an album. You don't have to produce a single physical piece of music. You can just release it, and it's in the cloud somewhere.
Hmm.
It don't cost nothing.
Yeah.
But that takes away from the specialness because you don't value it like you just want people to hear whatever it is you're talking about. You know,
Yeah.
and I don't think I don't work is um, value, uh, you know.
Right. Okay. Let's get back to you. You said you're working on new stuff. Is there any time frame to when that's gonna show up, or are you just like, what I mean, sort of working on it at the moment? And
Well, no, I'm wrapping up recording now.
Mhm.
Wrapping up recording, mixing now.
Okay.
I got to make a song, do, and then after that, I'm looking at either October, September release.
Okay.
You know, so before
September.
that,
Yeah.
definitely before the years out.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, man. That's
yeah.
cool.
So yeah,
Yeah. I wanted to ask your name, Journalist 103. I read somewhere that one of your cousins had something to do with you deciding on that name. So yeah, what is the story of how you got to be known as Journalist 103?
Well, how that came about was originally back in the day, my old clip, I got from that guy. I learned how to freestyle, so I was really good. And I was and just and as one day I was sitting in class and I was writing an interview, and one of my teachers looked over my shoulder and she took a look at what I was writing. She said, "You write really well. You should be a journalist."
Mm,
So that always stuck with me, right? But I didn't really necessarily want to give away my old rap name.
mm,
I was just trying to figure out how to make it work.
yeah.
So one day I was looking up at the letters in the alphabet in class, and I noticed that J was the 10th letter in the alphabet and C was the third letter. So that's where the 103 comes from, for
Okay.
J Clip.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, so now it works. So that's how Journalist 103 was birthed.
Okay.
Um,
All right. Oh, that's
yeah,
cool,
so
man. And
yeah, that
also obviously the sort of themes that you have in your music. You sort of reporting live from your from where you are. So
Mhm,
that's where the journalist
mhm,
comes in as well. So I get that as well, man. Um. So yeah.
mhm.
So what I like to do, I know you've shouted out a few people, man. Shout out to Apollo Brown and Guilty Simpson, and the tour and everybody that took part in the tour. But is there anybody else that you want to shout out, either that helped you on your way in the past, or what I mean, just people that you want to shout out now?
Um, they- yeah, you know, my Marv One, Guilty Simpson, of course. Shout out to my guy Guilt. Almighty Dreadnoughts, of course, my old crew, Mountain Climbers, my man Stripe, my man Moo, of course. My man Moo was very instrumental in, reeling me back in when I didn't even want to do music no more. So shouts out to my man Moo.
Mm.
Um, shit, my man Nick Speed, man, so uh, rest in peace, the press. Um, uh, you side, uh, coach, um, Dogmatic, of course, everybody from D12, those are homies. Um, man, just the whole Detroit hip hop scene, everybody that's up and coming, that's trying to do their thing. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Shouts out to Nolan the Ninja. That's my guy right there. Um, Nolan. Um, yeah, man, like Detroit, man. So
All right,
shout
man.
out to, I just coming up doing the thing.
Yeah, man. Okay then. Yeah, so thank you very much for joining me, man. It's a shame the line's a little bit crackly, cutting in and out. But yeah, it's been fascinating to talk to you, man. Yeah, so everybody, Journalist 103 on IG, and I'm sure everywhere else. Go and check out the catalogue, man. That's marked by the left, to me, is classic material that stays in my regular rotation. And reporting live and Battle for Hearts and Minds as well, man. This is legendary for me, and I thank you for joining me because it really is appreciated, man. So yeah, everybody go check out everything from Journalist 103, man. When you've got that new stuff coming out, man, let me know. I'll definitely promote that for you as well. Um, but for now, I'll leave you to it, man.
Yeah,
So, Journalist 103, thank you very much for your time, sir.
appreciate it, bro. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Bye bye now. Follow me on all social media platforms at JJMusicLover75, and also follow Black Culture Radio on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok.